All right, we're going to turn our attention to Ottawa, where all eyes are focused on who will form the next federal government. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre ended his campaign week promising 100 days of change, while Liberal leader Mark Carney doubled down on his message that he is the best person to stand up to U.S. President Donald Trump. But whose message will break through to voters at the ballot box? For more on how this election is shaping up, I'm joined in studio, which is great to have her in person, CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos. Vassy, I should highlight to our viewers, too, who always love when you come on the show, but you do that for us from home. You haven't even made it to your office yet, which we always really appreciate. So great to have you in person.
Happy to be here.
Listening to your podcast last night, you have been reflecting on how different this election campaign is. So let's start there. What makes this unique to any of the others that you've covered before?
Well, I think the primary thing for me that is unique about this election is the degree to which, if the public opinion polls are correct, Canadians are seized with just one singular question. Not who will best represent my views, but who will form government. Who do I want to form government? And as a result, they have completely coalesced around the Liberals and the Conservatives. And it has been decades, like decades upon decades, before I was born, in fact, in which that has been the case, that essentially 80% of Canadians have already made up their mind between one of those two parties, to the detriment, obviously, of other parties.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious to see whether or not that holds on the actual election night tonight. But I think just even the sort of existence of that situation throughout the last 5 weeks is very, very unique for me.
And also, when you take a look closer at the numbers, you see that because things are so close, that means whoever forms government, a large portion of the country is going to be disappointed. And then we come back. We've talked a lot about sovereignty, but then we're going to have a conversation around unity in this country.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing that up. It's kind of been weighing on me over the past number of days, particularly because I worked in Alberta and Saskatchewan for a long time. I know the sentiment exists there already in large capacity or in large droves about, feeling kind of overlooked and alienated at times. I think if the polls are correct and we are looking at a Liberal government, 40% of the country's population essentially will be disappointed with that outcome. That's not to say there's anything wrong with the process that took place, and it's clearly reflective of the will of Canadians, but I just think we're so seized with this threat from Donald Trump that there could be other issues, particularly around national unity, and even other demographics where we're bifurcated along that liberal-conservative line, old versus young, haves versus, people with pensions, people who don't.
People with houses, people without.
Right, women versus men, and then the East versus West, even urban versus rural. So I think it'll be a huge challenge for whomever is Prime Minister. I hope that they go against their, instincts to exacerbate those differences for political utility, because that has been the case at the federal and provincial level often over the last number of years. Hopefully they go against those instincts. Either way, it's a huge challenge.
If the polls hold out and the Conservatives do not take government by the end of this day, what does that mean for the Conservative Party? What does that mean for Pierre Poilievre? Who, can we just take a moment to reflect together on how head-spinning the turnaround of the fortunes of the Conservative Party have been? Perhaps we'll find out more at the end of tonight when all the votes are counted. Yeah,
well, only in the construct of the last 4 months, 6 months, does going from 46% to 40% amount to, a quote-unquote failure.
Yeah.
Like a Conservative Party leader for the last decade would have dreamed of 39, 40% in public opinion polls as it exists. If that translates to the actual popular vote tonight, I think he will not go. Unless something drastic happened, I don't think, like him losing his seat, I don't think that's actually going to happen. But it would have to be that people would have to mount a challenge to his leadership, like they did for Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer, both of whom,
neither of whom did not have those numbers.
They didn't have those numbers. They won the popular vote, to be fair to them, and they still couldn't hang on to leadership. So the party does have a habit of eating its own and doing so very publicly. I think that he's not going to announce tonight, for example, if they don't form government, that he's going, particularly if those popular support numbers are borne out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are able to lift your party to where it was the last time it won a majority, you have a case to make to stay on. And I don't know who is waiting in the wings to force him out.
What's really fun about election night is it's not about the polls, it's about the voters. And it's about the ridings specifically. Which are the ridings that you're watching?
I'm watching all the leaders' ridings, and I'm mostly watching Jagmeet Singh's riding. I think that if he is able to keep his seat, maybe that changes the calculation, but you certainly get the feeling from him during this campaign that he is sort of like at peace with whatever may happen and prepared to announce that he is not staying on. I think that if he does lose his seat,
do you think it happens
party,
tonight?
I think it could if he loses the party loses its status as an official party, or he loses his seat, or both of those things happen in tandem. I think it's very possible. Otherwise, I'm looking at Quebec, actually, even more than I'm looking at Ontario. The polls seem pretty solid for the Liberal Party in Ontario. They have been very wobbly over the past few days, and the week really in Quebec, the Bloc has seen what appears to be a resurgence. I'm very curious to see whether or not that is the case, because I do think if the Liberals are successful at forming government, Quebec will be key to determining majority versus minority.
Great.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.